Hello friends, welcome to another segment of Interviews That Matter. I'm your host Raj Mehta. Friends, in this segment, we bring guests who influence our lives. This includes elected officials, policymakers, heads of certain organizations, and other dignitaries. This is my sincere hope, and it's an attempt to create a bridge between our community and the powers in our adopted land. And I hope that this gives some kind of an advantage to our community with the shared knowledge by these people. Today, we have one of the most powerful senator in the New York State Senate is here with us as our guest. His name is Senator Kemp Hannon. Welcome friends. Today we have one of the most powerful senator in the state of New York with us today. Senator Kemp Hannon. Senator, welcome, sir.
Nice
Appreciate
to be
your
with you,
time
Raj.
coming with here. Senator, 77 to 89 as a New York State Assemblyman, 89 to now current as a New York State Senator, almost 35 years
Yes.
in this business. How did you get started?
I got started actually by just being excited about politics and government, reading all about it. We had lots more newspapers in print back when I was in high school, Long Island Press and things like that, and the World Telegraph. And I've always continued because it changes society, it's the opportunity to try to make things better, and that's always been intriguing to me.
So you were always like your mindset was serving people. That was always there in you.
Serving
basically.
people, and then why do the systems not work better? I was just couldn't wait to get to college and study economics because I would understand how different things are put together. A discipline that turned out to be a good prelude, because about 1995 I got to be the head of the health committee, and it turned out to be that systems of finance have been really very, very important to the direction that health is going.
Yep. So you are a senator for 6th District.
6th District, that's the middle part of Nassau County. It's the only Senate district in all of Long Island that has no coastline.
Wow.
So I start in Franklin Square out in the west, I go right down the middle, basically go down Hempstead Turnpike to Farmingdale. I come up a bit to Plainview and down to Massapequa in Oyster Bay. I have about 330,000 constituents.
Oh, okay.
All highly intelligent, and when they call you up for something, you know that it's going to be a tough question, and that they have already tried to resolve it themselves. Yeah. So we have a team of people in my office and myself, and we always try to do a great job at resolving whatever problem comes our way.
So that means you definitely have to answer them because they are smart people, intelligent.
Oh,
they
yeah.
already know.
Yeah,
they expect basically.
The challenges are really whatever government can do,
right.
And and sometimes it's not even government. There was an incredibly difficult problem that came about with a mom had a problem with one of the sports leagues and the coach, and didn't like her child being assigned to someplace. Well, we looked into it, we checked out with the league, we checked out with the rules, we looked at the possibilities, we talked to the mom again, she understood she was happy because we figured out what was appropriate for her circumstance. And that happens whether it's Medicare or Medicaid or getting a street paved or whatever.
Wow, interesting, very interesting. I mean, you must have a good staff here, really take care of them.
They're fantastic.
Right, yeah. Now you are you're a chairman of Health Committee,
yes.
Which is really great, and you have been instrumental in passing many legislation, including Health Reform Act and Women's Health, and I mean I can go on and on, obviously, Is there anything like any legislation that you helped pass, which is kind of you felt great about it, or you really thought of good accomplishment?
I actually feel great about them all because each one is taking a problem and resolving it.
Right.
The one I'm feeling best about right now is a law that's going to come into play in about a month, That is called the return to play in the event a student has had a concussion.
Okay.
And we trying to prevent people with concussions from going back and being involved in the sports team that they were in. We didn't limit it just to athletes because it could, and we didn't limit it to any one sport.
Right.
It took a long time to get this statute passed. People didn't know what a concussion was. It's really called the mild traumatic brain injury. They didn't know what really was the best thing to do. And then, because schools have so many different component parts, and when it comes to athletics, many of those component parts are volunteers, or they do extra work, coaches do extra work. It was very hard bringing them all into a decision-making process and getting them all to agree that this is a statute we should have. And we did pass a statute. It's a bare minimum, but it probably took about 6 or 7 years to get it done.
Wow, 6 to 7 years. Wow.
Yes.
So really, before you pass any legislation, you take input from a lot of people who are concerned, and then you draft a bill and all that. Something
and
like that,
and what people would say to me, well, you get Nassau, Suffolk, you just have about 100 school districts, and that's not hard. There's 700 school districts in New York State.
Wow.
The type of school, they varied mightily, rural, city, lots of suburban, and so it's trying to fit those things together.
Yeah. So, like you, as I said, that you were in Assembly before,
yes.
in Senate. How do you feel about like these two institutions, like Assembly? You were an Assemblyman, then you turned to Senate.
Oh, well, the Assembly is a much vaster place, 150 members versus the 62 that we have in the Senate. People tend to specialize in more narrow areas, but I had a chance to do something that was pretty interesting in the Assembly. I was the minority floor leader, so that the numbers were a lot closer. Now it's about 100 Democrats to about 50 Republicans.
Right.
When I was there, it was about 66 Republicans and 79 Democrats. So what we did on the floor in terms of debate and bringing up the issues and offering alternatives was hugely important. Now, you still were not in charge of a committee. You did not do a lot of the fact gathering, but it was a very, very different atmosphere and enterprise. So when I came to the Senate, of course it was different. I got to be chair of a committee, housing, which was not that relevant to Nassau County, but is very relevant when you get to New York City. And that was a huge introduction, and I had a chance to get to the Health Committee in '95.
So you were more able to accomplish more in Senate versus Assembly, is that true?
You accomplish more, and you're responsible for territory. The housing, we had some new federal housing laws that we had to implement. Now in the state, we have lots of federal laws, we have lots of our own state initiatives, and people look to you as, if something comes up in health, what do you think? And they're not always going to agree. That's the nature of the legislature. Is it's a crossroads, and people have different opinions, and they want to see their own opinion promulgated.
Many of our viewers are in healthcare.
Yes.
Medicine, medical doctors, and all that. And most of my friends are doctors. Because whenever I am in a group of people, I'm the minority there. So obviously, I always demand my rights, but it doesn't happen that way. But the common issue for many of my friends and many of the people from our South Asian community is the premium, malpractice insurance premium. I have to give you an example that because of that, many of my friends who were OBGYN, they stopped delivering babies, because if you only care for the woman until the delivery, your premium is about $50,000. Malpractice insurance. But as soon as you start delivering babies, the premium goes up to $200,000.
Absolutely. It's absolutely ridiculous. I've been very much a proponent that we need to change this whole system, that we should be putting some restrictions on what the awards are, that we should have separate funds so that if a child is born with a problem, that the fund takes care of them. In fact, you can make a case that we don't know what happens right now to children who are born with a deficiency, and we really suspect that we don't think that it's malpractice at all. It may be a neurological disease that they have, but yet if you go to the court system, about 1/3 of those people get a award, and we don't even know what happens to the other 2/3.
Wow.
California's had caps on their awards for years. Texas just did it a few years ago. Nothing drastic is happening in either of those states. So, but it's a very difficult thing to do. The Assembly, the entire time I've been in office, has never passed any law really, except for one last year, which is a very minor neurologically impaired infant fund. But that was the only exception for the entire time I've been there, that to reduce the ability to sue.
Wow, but I thought the governor, when he came into office, Andrew Cuomo, he had on his agenda to do this kind of thing, but somehow it's not yet done, or I don't know, I mean. Well,
he had the two things on the agenda. He had the cap, and then he had a neurological impaired fund. But the Assembly was ferocious. They negotiated out the cap, and then they winnowed down the neurologically impaired fund. But still, Governor Cuomo did more in this area than any other governor in recent history.
So then, do you see any chance of anything happening, or is the lobby is too strong on the other side?
I think the lobby is too strong. But if there's anything that's going to happen within the next 12 months, it's change.
Okay.
We already have change coming in New York, where we have taken so many of our systems, a nursing home, long-term health care, licensed agencies, we're putting them into managed care.
Right.
That's going to be big change for everybody. And why is that necessary? We're trying to save money for New York taxpayers, but we also anticipate the federal government, when they start to deal with their deficit, they're going to start cutting back extraordinary large numbers, and I don't know what's going to happen to hospitals and nursing homes and home health care and all that. We have to be prepared for a lot of different things. At some point, we may well have to say, okay, and we need medical malpractice reform. But I'm all for it. I've been no holds barred on that.
This governor has taken some bold steps, like in terms of pension, at least he started in their direction. So obviously, I mean, because he's working with the Senate Majority Leader and Assembly Majority Leader, and he's able to, manage through those kind of hard negotiations or whatever. So I guess this is a chance really to do something on this issue.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And the other economic issues.
Right.
This is the governor who has said, yeah, I recognize the biggest challenge in New York is our jobs, our taxes, the economy, and I want to focus on that. And he's done a particularly good job at focusing on it. We still have a long way to go, though.
Absolutely. I mean, nothing happens overnight, obviously, right? So it takes time.
Changing the outlook and changing the business climate. I don't know them at all, but I just read in the papers this week that New York was successful in keeping a group called Hanes. I think they do herbal and vitamins and things like that. But they were about to move to New Jersey. Governor Christie apparently had called them directly. We kept them, but they had to put a package together with Ed Mangano's group and the state economic development group. And so we've kept them, and we've kept the jobs here in Nassau County.
Same thing happened with Cannon, obviously. Cannon stayed here also because of some package worked out.
But Cannon was extraordinarily patient. We're very patient, but I'm glad they are. We're in North American headquarters.
Yep. No, Ed Mangano was in our program here.
Oh, good.
And he has taken some bold step himself. Which is kind of not easy. To take on those. Whatever he has done so far. So I did congratulate him.
Oh, good.
And now let me go back to the Obamacare.
Yes.
Obviously. Obamacare right now, Supreme Court is kind of making a decision on Obamacare, whether to go with it or just overrule it, right? So if that happens, like Supreme Court goes with the Obamacare, then 32 million uninsured Americans will get insurance, but then again, the burden will go on the employers, some of it.
Well, so they say. I'm not so sure that
Okay.
if and I've spent a lot of time on this, can see how exactly the wheels and the gears of Obamacare work together. Now, there's some of it which is very easy, such as coverage for your children up to 26. You must do that. Or you can't discriminate if you have pre-existing conditions. That seems pretty easy, but actually New York had that before. It's the setting up of the exchange, and the exchange, people think the exchange is automatically going to give insurance. Doesn't. The companies will still give insurance.
Right.
The exchange is a way of promulgating information about the policies of the companies. And then the question is, what are the rules for those policies? And in some cases, for those between 200% of poverty and 400% of poverty, there'll be a subsidy.
Oh.
Much of the subsidy paid for by the individual mandate. So there's, will this all work? I don't know. I'm not being, I don't have to be at all political. I don't even call it Obamacare. I just call it healthcare reform. Okay. And we look at it in an even-handed way. The state Senate has been, I think, right down the middle in terms of pragmatic and for healthcare. And we help expand Child Health Plus twice.
Okay.
We help create Family Health Plus. We help create a thing called Healthy New York.
Right.
And
Healthy New York.
we expanded the amount of people with coverage in the state. And I mean, that's a good thing, because the more people there are, the whole system works.
Yep.
Even if you're rich, when there's more people in it, the whole system works.
Yeah, and the burden goes like evenly distributed, basically.
Exactly.
That makes a difference. So, even if Supreme Court goes against, healthcare reform, right? Still, New York has pretty much taken care of, out of whatever 32 million people, they've already
We have taken care of a great number.
Right.
It's interesting, though, some of the ideologues who wanted to really push for more and more coverage, a few years ago they had the numbers were up into 3 million. Now I'm looking at it and they're going, well, we only have a 500,000 left. I go, I think you got to go back and look at your statistics. There still will be a challenge. And the challenge also is, as the government still is coming out of the recession, the restriction on money going to healthcare entities, and then are we sufficiently funding a hospital or a nursing home? What's happening when the healthcare plans, when they start to cut back? Because many of the doctors we've been working with have felt that some of the changes that have been quietly made by the plans in regard to what they call out-of-network payments or office-based surgery payments, that they've been very unfair by the plans, and we're trying to figure out ways to ameliorate that.
Yeah. Now, I want to come back to the South Asian community. So I wanted to find out, I'm sure that you must have met a lot of people from South Asia.
Yes.
And so what do you think of us?
What
is in your mind?
I'm very highly impressed. I am gratified to have several as good friends. I know that coming to another country from your home country means it's a very difficult journey. It's something where you almost have to start out again, and the folks who do it are just extraordinary. I come from a mom who, now these are not far off, but she came from Canada, had to go through the whole process, including immigration, and my wife, who came from Australia, who had to go through a whole process and including immigration. So these are hurdles we set up that are, A, they're not good hurdles, and B, the people who get through it, they're extraordinary people.
So we have like a lot of professionals, a lot of business people, and I'm sure that, I'm sure you know this, that the median income is the highest in all the other ethnic communities, our people has it. So,
well, and our health commissioner of state is Indian, Nirav Shah, who especially accomplished, and the humor that I get, the twinkle in my eye, is when I introduce him, and he grew up in Buffalo. So, with that said, any of our viewers have some kind of internship, and they can always call your office. Oh, absolutely. Right. They can call any of the assembly men or women or senators in Long Island. It's an extraordinarily accessible group of legislators.
Right. Okay, appreciate it. now I want to go to the election, this year's presidential election.
Oh, this is beyond my pay grade.
Obviously, it's going to be Mitt Romney against President Obama.
Right.
Right. So, if you have to tell them, okay, your advice, your veteran year, you know what's going on and how it's going to go and all that. What would be your advice to each one of them? That one issue that they should focus on that can make a difference.
I think Barack Obama has to focus on what he had led people to believe he could accomplish, and why we really haven't got there. He raised hopes. First of all, he is the most articulate individual in public life, so he has a major advantage over everybody else. And he expresses himself, and the language he uses is precise and something to behold. But he really got our hopes up, and the question will be, okay, maybe life didn't work out. Why didn't it work out? What do you propose to do in substance? Not, yes, you got to run for office. I do too. You got to cut some ribbons and all of that. Right. But what are you going to do in substance to grow the economy?
Right.
And I frankly don't see a clear-cut policy of the Middle East. I'm not so sure what he wants to do with Pakistan, Afghanistan, with the Arab nations, with the Israel. Now he's doing different things, but it doesn't come across as a whole policy. When it comes to Southeast Asia, he's been okay, but once again, I don't see a policy. Switching to Mitt Romney, he has to start to articulate his foreign policy. He has not done it. It has not been his background. And I think he also should be talking about some of the things he's accomplished. I think they're extraordinary career items. Running in Bain Capital, which was a way of job creation. Right. The Olympics. People don't remember how badly the Olympic situation was. He had to come in, and that's one where you just can't tell people. You have to be a leader, you have to be a motivator, and you have to be a money raiser. And then the governor of Massachusetts, a Republican in Massachusetts. It's not Can't be very easy. So he had some accomplishments, but he has to tell people about those. He's allowed Barack Obama to define Bain on him instead of telling people what he was doing.
Well, right now, like primary is almost kind of is out now.
Yes.
He's the clear nominee rather. So now hopefully he will focus on those things, and now hopefully he will work on uniting the whole Republican Party together, because that's how it's going to happen if it has happened.
Yeah, I think he'll do the good unification. But he has to tell his story, because it's a good one.
Okay. What are your future plans, sir?
My future plans, just try to get through this legislative session. We had come out, we had lost the majority. We came back to the majority in 2011. I think we've done some extraordinary things in public policy, especially in the tax program and job growth. That still is the biggest issue we have. Tax program, job growth, getting the state moving forward, getting that job growth here on Long Island. I have lots of healthcare things that we have to do. We'll have the implementation of what they call the Medicaid redesign team. We have the implementation of healthcare reform, however that may be. And then just at the moment, very important set of legislation in regard to opiate drug abuse, particularly nasty, but painkillers in New York, it has become just rampant.
Misused.
2010.
Yeah.
The number of painkiller prescriptions written in New York State, 22 million.
Wow.
We only have 19 million New Yorkers. So, and some of those, when you get outside of short-term acute, cancer, some of those cause some addictions, and that's a real problem. So we're working on that. It's been night and day for the last couple of weeks, and so we're trying to move forward.
So what is your final message to the South Asian community?
The more you can participate, the more ideas you can bring forward. There is a need, there's a welcome. This bill I just talked about, a senior physician from Beth Israel wrote a 3-page letter the other night, which was so extraordinary, we incorporated right away some of the ideas. Had no lobbyist, sent the letter in. It was the quality of the ideas, it was the facts presented, and that's what makes public policy.
Well, really appreciate your time today. Thank you so much for coming, sir.
Well, what a delight.
You know, it's an honor
Thanks
to be with you, sir.
Thanks for all the great questions.